So what if I told you that the ultimate survival guide for today's startup founders facing the brutal, incredibly fast-paced AI revolution wasn't actually written in a Silicon Valley boardroom? No, what if I told you it was composed in ancient India, thousands and thousands of years ago? Welcome to this ZrrRing explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We're taking a really deep dive into the Ramayana, but here's the twist. We aren't looking at it as just a mythological story. We are decoding it as a highly advanced strategic business playbook for the modern frontier tech enterprise. Look, right now, every single week brings a new AI model, a new breakthrough, and frankly, a new existential crisis for founders. Whether you're building the next big large language model, scaling a tech startup, or just trying to navigate massive systemic disruption in your industry, the frameworks hidden in these ancient verses are going to completely change the way you think about leadership, strategy, and survival. Let's get right into it. This brings us to a massive central contradiction in the tech world today. Right now, frontier tech companies are armed with the most advanced algorithms and the highest density silicon ever created by humanity. I mean, they have raw, unbelievable computing power. We're talking about massive GPU clusters that would have seemed like pure magic just 10 years ago. Yet despite all this frontier technology, these exact same companies are struggling deeply. We're seeing massive issues with systemic disruption, ethical integration, toxic company culture, and extreme team burnout. So you might be wondering, how on earth can an ancient Indian epic hold the ultimate playbook for surviving this very modern AI revolution? Well, the answer lies in the fact that while the physical mediums of execution have evolved from ancient battlefields to modern server racks, the core dynamics of human organization, trust, and ethical governance, they remain exactly the same. The struggles of modern tech executives perfectly mirror the exact same strategic and moral dilemmas faced by the characters in this epic. To really grasp this, we need to completely reframe how we look at the Ramayana. We have to view it almost like an advanced, highly structured Harvard Business Review case study, just much older. A masterclass in corporate governance, strategic alliances, and something called Dharma. In the modern business context, think of Dharma as your core operating system. It's the unwavering mission, the ethical baseline, and the values that guide a company through periods of intense chaos. When a leader operates with Dharma, leading with absolute clarity and conscious execution, their impact outlives market cycles, hype trains, and momentary tech trends. This ancient blueprint teaches us that you literally cannot just optimize for the short term, or just try to survive until the next funding round. You have to govern for sustainability. The Ramayana shows us exactly how a leader's character acts as the ultimate anchor when the business environment around them is experiencing monumental, earth-shattering disruption. There's this profound quote derived from our research that captures this perfectly. It says, "Physical assets and raw computing power are highly fragile when divorced from ethical alignment and strategic judgment." Let that actually sink in for a moment. In our contemporary technology landscape, advanced algorithms and compute access are rapidly democratizing. If you have the capital, you can just rent the servers. So if everyone has access to the exact same baseline AI foundation models and the same APIs, where does your competitive advantage actually come from? The source material makes it crystal clear. True strategic variance today is determined by non-commoditized inputs. I'm talking about cognitive judgment, high-trust organizational networks, and ethical character. You could literally have the fastest neural networks on the planet, but if your enterprise lacks internal trust and ethical alignment, your entire empire is incredibly fragile. Your true moat isn't in the silicon. It's in the human layer of your enterprise. Okay, so this brings us to what we call the reputation capital moat, which covers our first 5 business lessons. Look at Lord Rama's absolute adherence to ethics. He accepted a 14-year exile rather than compromise his values or his family's word. In modern business terms, he prioritized his core operating system, his dharma, before his position. He actively sacrificed immediate political authority to preserve institutional integrity. This built an irreplaceable reserve of reputation capital. Today, this is akin to a company sacrificing short-term profitability to honor rigorous data privacy commitments or standing firm on user safety even when it costs them engagement metrics. It proves that true leadership is sacrifice. And as we all know in the startup world, crisis always reveals character. When a massive PR disaster or a regulatory crackdown hits, It's this exact reputation capital that protects the company. Your credibility sustains your institution way longer than any temporary market dominance ever could. The epic also brilliantly illustrates a stark contrast in management styles, and this is absolutely crucial for modern founders to understand. On one side, we have Ravana. He represents traditional, aggressive corporate control. Honestly, Ravana was basically the ultimate toxic tech micromanager. He ran a highly centralized monopoly. He consistently ignored the wise counsel of his advisors, and he believed that raw power, intimidation, and fear were the only ways to scale his empire. We see this in toxic startup cultures today, right? Where power without restraint ultimately leads to a catastrophic collapse. On the flip side, we have Rama's model of servant leadership. Rama empowered his team. He respected his stakeholders regardless of their social status, and he utilized decentralized trust. He understood that true influence grows when a leader actually carries the cost and the pressure, providing cover for their team rather than seeking comfort for themselves. This servant leadership model scales far more effectively in an era of rapid innovation because it builds capable, autonomous operators rather than blind, fearful order takers. Now, you don't just take my word for it. This isn't just a fun philosophical reach. It's scientifically validated management theory. Academic research, including extensive work published in the International Journal of Management and Humanities, has heavily scrutinized the Ramayana, and they've validated these exact ancient principles as absolutely critical for modern organizational success. The research highlights how principles derived from the epic directly map on to modern requirements for determination, self-control, and selfless people management. For instance, massive global companies like the Tata Group and Infosys have actively incorporated these psychological frameworks into their corporate cultures, really focusing on ethical business practices, deep empathy, and social responsibility. This academic validation proves that the frameworks embedded in this thousands of years old epic are perfectly aligned with creating highly motivated, high-performing corporate teams today. This philosophy actually builds into a highly executable structural framework. Modern business schools teach the 4 phases of strategic management, and it's fascinating how we can map them chronologically and perfectly to the events of the Ramayana. Step 1 is environmental analysis. This completely mirrors the scouting of Lanka, gathering data, understanding the difficult terrain, and knowing your competitors' true strengths. Step 2 is strategy formulation. Rama didn't just rush in blindly, right? He systematically built the Va-Na-Ras alliance, finding the right partners to execute a massive, seemingly impossible vision. Step 3 is implementation. This is the incredible engineering feat of building the bridge across the ocean and executing the campaign with tight tactical precision and brilliant resource allocation. And finally, step 4 is evaluation. Rama's post-war actions focused heavily on continuity, justice, and assessing the long-term systemic impacts of the campaign. The structural brilliance of this ancient strategy is entirely applicable to launching a complex tech product today. Moving into our next 5 lessons, let's talk about strategic alliances. Progress demands ecosystem thinking. You simply cannot build the future in a silo. Rama demonstrated this perfectly by forming alliances far beyond his comfort zone. Instead of just relying on a traditional royal army, he engaged in what modern business calls a blue ocean strategy, finding entirely new, uncontested spaces for partnership by allying with ZrrRing and the Va-Na-Ras. This was a profoundly symbiotic partnership. Rama helped ZrrRing regain his kingdom, and in return, ZrrRing offered his highly resourceful, unconventional army. Business today runs on relationships. A successful modern manager, much like Rama, resolves conflicts through smart diplomacy and builds conscious loyalty rather than demanding blind obedience. If you want your AI startup to survive, you absolutely have to develop cross-cultural, diverse alliances, and continuously nurture crucial relationships. Because when your internal resources are completely tapped out, it's your ecosystem that will step in and save you. Now we touch upon a massive buzzword in modern tech, decentralized autonomous teams. But guess what? The Ramayana did it first, and arguably, they did it way better. In a decentralized network, you empower local nodes to execute independently based on a unified core vision. Rama gave his generals, particularly Hanuman, the absolute freedom and trust to operate independently. When Hanuman was sent across the ocean to find Sita, he wasn't being micromanaged from central headquarters. Well, actually, scratch that. It's more like he wasn't waiting on a Slack approval for every single move in the field. He was given a clear, definite aim, and then he was trusted to navigate unforeseen obstacles, make real-time decisions, and pivot entirely when necessary to achieve that goal. In the AI era, where market conditions and technology change in literal milliseconds, if a founder insists on personally approving every single decision, the company will face fatal paralysis. You must build a unified vision, but empower your local nodes to execute autonomously. This empowerment relies on a golden rule, which brings us to lessons 11 through 15. Empower, don't control. Control inherently limits growth to the capacity of one leader, but empowerment exponentially multiplies your organizational capability. Rama was an absolute master at team motivation, constantly recognizing the discrete efforts of his soldiers and providing the right incentives to keep morale high. But perhaps the most vital takeaway for modern founders from this decentralized approach is this: listen deeply, decide firmly. Rama practiced radical inclusive listening. He took in advice from his entire ecosystem, deeply valued his subordinates' opinions, and encouraged debate. But when it was time to act, he made decisive, firm choices. This is the ultimate antidote to the consensus-driven analysis paralysis that kills so many modern startups. It creates a complete ecosystem of effective communication where everyone feels heard, but the mission relentlessly keeps moving forward. Okay, this is where the analogies get incredibly cool. I want you to think of Hanuman as the ultimate predictive analytics engine. In modern tech, AI tools are used for real-time environmental monitoring, gathering unstructured data, and providing strategic foresight. Hanuman embodied this entirely. According to the original text, Hanuman wasn't just a simple folklore character. He was a highly intelligent official, an absolute master of strategy, possessing ancient yogic abilities that allowed him ultimate agility and frictionless movement across borders. Translating this to a modern startup scenario, Hanuman represents the ideal agile intelligence unit. He went into hostile territory, gathered critical data, analyzed the environment, anticipated ravenous future moves, and delivered highly structured strategic foresight back to his team. He was operating exactly like a highly tuned, modern AI-driven predictive analytics system, allowing Rama to make critical, data-informed decisions in real time. Ultimately, survival in the AI era comes down to foresight and innovation, which rounds out our final 5 lessons. Vision must be paired with execution. A brilliant strategy only matters when it's translated into disciplined, daily action. This requires a thorough SWOT analysis before ever entering the battlefield, but more importantly, it requires a hyper-awareness of weak signals. The Ramayana relied on localized intelligence to detect early warnings. Today, AI tools analyze millions of data points to detect these weak signals before they balloon into massive crises. And when things go completely wrong, you have to pivot. When Rama's army was critically injured, they didn't just give up, they executed a massive, agile pivot to find the Sanjeevani herb. That is true startup agility. When you combine that rapid adaptation with finding uncontested markets and focusing on values-based innovation, you build an absolutely unstoppable enterprise. This ancient framework has a profound psychological impact on modern team dynamics. Consider this quote: "A true leader is someone who fosters future leaders." This is important to carry the business forward. Now, this isn't just a nice motivational poster to hang in the office. It's a structural operational necessity for organizational resilience. If your business cannot function when you step out of the room, you haven't actually built a business, you've just built a very stressful, high-paying job for yourself. By employing these ancient frameworks, trusting your autonomous nodes, leading with servant leadership, and prioritizing ethical coaching, you are literally building a succession plan into the very DNA of your startup. You're creating a resilient, anti-fragile machine that can survive intense market shocks because the leadership capability is widely distributed rather than being dangerously centralized at the top. All of this leads to a critical contrast: short-term optimization versus sustainable governance. Ravana chased quick technological and physical dominance. He wanted the immediate win, the fast expansion, the absolute power. But it was entirely fragile because it lacked a foundational ethical operating system. We see tech companies do this every single day, blitz scaling to chase massive valuations, prioritizing explosive user growth over user safety, and burning out their top talent for a quick IPO. But Rama's approach? It was all about sustainable, values-based governance. It might take longer, and it might require painful sacrifices in the short term, but the prosperity achieved is long-term and unshakable. Replacing chaotic short-term optimization with highly structured, sustainable corporate governance is exactly how you survive the AI revolution without losing your soul. Let's pull all of this together into one bigger overarching insight. We are living in a fast-approaching era where AI is going to write the code, generate the marketing copy, and perhaps even formulate base-level business strategies. The algorithms are going to be doing the heavy lifting. So where does that actually leave you as a human founder? True competitive advantage is no longer found in your silicon, your server racks, or even your proprietary code. As the Ramayana has taught us, your ultimate competitive advantage is the human layer. It's the ethical character, the emotional intelligence, the empathy, and the reputation capital of your enterprise. Your ability to build deep, unshakable trust, both with your customers and your internal team, is the one thing artificial intelligence absolutely cannot replicate. It is, without a doubt, your ultimate moat. Isn't it absolutely mind-blowing how a thousands of years old epic holds the exact playbook we need for today's most cutting-edge technology challenges? It's incredible. So I have a question for you. Out of all the insights we explored today, which ancient lesson are you going to implement in your leadership style or your startup right now? Are you going to focus on empowering your decentralized nodes, or are you going to start building up that reputation capital? Let us know in the comments below. And if you loved this deep dive into the fascinating intersection of ancient wisdom and modern business strategy, make sure to hit that subscribe button for ZrrRing. We have so much more insightful content coming your way. Thank you for joining the ZrrRing Explainer, and I will see you in the next one.